a little bit.
My name is Abina Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Kemau to Cape Palm, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Bokonjre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Focus on Liberia. For Liberia, Liberia. For Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday. It's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs. Hey, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment. Business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday. Focus on.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. We are live on Kear Radio FM 95.9 in Monrovia and FOL TV, wherever internet or social media is. Tonight, this afternoon, we're going to be dealing with a very important topic, that is change. Change. From the time we heard the songs, our eyes are open, thanks to the People Redemption Council. No more corruption. We have been expecting change. Change has come. The change we sought has come. We saw the election of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf after the war, promising change. We saw, even before that, Charles Taylor running on guns and saying, I will make Liberia better. And many of us, 97% of Liberia, embraced that change. We also saw change when, after the Ellen presidency, and the young people said, well, we've been left out, we want change, and we got the change. There came President Bouakai coming to rescue the country. So it's been change and change and change. We are here now. The change we all yearn for has come. Is this change for better, for worse, or is the same old? Are we moving forward? Are we moving backwards, or we are just stagnated? Those are the questions we're going to be dealing with Mr. Michael Asumana Patmo, who is our panelist here on point. Welcome, Ansu.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dennis. It's a little early for me, but I'm glad I was able to join. And I look forward to a spirited debate.
Thank you. Let me also welcome the new progressive commentator, Dr. Clarence R. Pearson. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure being on the show this evening in Liberia. I want to say hi to my fellow panelists and to the listeners and viewers out there. I think it's the first time for my own good friend, Dr. Fidel, and myself to be on the same platform. I want to say welcome, Fidel. It's a pleasure being on the show with you.
Thank you. Yes, let me welcome Dr. Fidel C.T. Budi, who is joining us from the UK. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Glad to be here. I think this is the first time I've heard Michael middle name is Ansumana, so you learn something new every day.
You're right. That's why you tune in to Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Let me welcome our resident economist, Mr. Thomas B. Kane. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi to all the panelists. Hi to the listeners in Liberia, out of Liberia, and wherever you are.
Thank you. And Tom is joining us from Addis Ababa. The time there is pretty late. Tom, what time is it? 4 plus 8, like 12 midnight or so?
11.
Or 11. Let me also welcome our producer at Kear Radio, Mr. George Goe. Welcome, Sir George.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening to the listeners. Mr. Thomas, I think you need to do some adjustment from your end. They feedback from your end, so you need to do some adjustment, Mr. Thomas, or the headset that you are using.
Thank you. Let me welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberian. We are broadcasting live from Atlanta, Georgia, and also live on Kear Radio FM 95.9. Gentlemen, let's talk about change. Are we moving forward? And I'm going to lay out some things that we need to look at to tell us whether this change that we have is change for the better, change for worse, or just same old. As a country, are we moving forward? Are we moving backwards, or are we at the same point? I know, some will talk about the war, but let's look at the past 3 decades now and see where are we. And the reason I brought this up is quite recently, there was a student demonstration in Monrovia, right? That student demonstration, MCSS students, because the teachers are laid down their chalks, say, well, we have some demands. Those demands have not been met, so we're not going to teach. After a while, the students got in the street, say, we deserve to learn. So government do something so our teachers will come. Government responded as usual with heavy hands, tear gassing the demonstrators. So I'm looking at this because there has been student demonstration, especially public school students in Monrovia. The first one that I saw was in 1986. That's almost 40 years ago. And I saw that the same way, it was for the same reason. Government responded the same way. The students took matters in their hands the same way. We also see, so on that education front and the way we do business, how are we doing? If you look at the University of Liberia, it's the same student demonstration and all that. Every president comes with his own president of the university. Right now, we have moved from just 2 vice presidents under Dr. Anthony Brown Shemmer. We moved to 4. Now we are at 9 vice presidents. So I'm looking at all these things. I say, wait a minute, are we moving forward? Where are we when it comes to education? Especially the way we do business, the way people react to things. That's where I want us to start. Let me start with you, Ansumana.
Well, I do remember that student riot, and I remember riots before that. If I'm not mistaken, this became almost an annual event. Students from the government schools, Tottenham High, Central High, Newport Junior High, G12, you name it, would get together, and they will go from private school to private school, stoning, basically saying that if we can't be in school, the private school children will not be in school, because that's where the government officials send their children. So long before that, we had that issue. Yes, 86, we had it. I remember I was a young junior high student in St. Patrick's at the time. And yes, they did happen there, and it happened years after as well. So this has been decades of the same challenge. It is sad that we still have that challenge today. It is sad that the government is still folding their hands. And it's sad that there are things that have improved. The kind of cars the government officials ride has improved. Their housing allowances have improved. The number of gas slips have improved. Their salaries have improved. 1986, lawmakers were making $400-500 a month. Now they're making upwards almost $10,000. So many things have improved in our little country. But the only thing that seems to be stagnant is the suffering of the masses from generation to generation and year to year. And it's incredibly sad. I'm not sure were you looking for a solution from me? Or right now, we're just doing an intro.
Yeah, we'll come to the solution part.
Okay,
I
no
really
problem.
want to see that because I've listed, like the education side. I also talk about governance. I also want to talk about, the way we govern. I want to look at also concession, our food and fuel. But I want to start with this education
Okay.
piece. And
Yeah.
let me go to our resident economist. He looks at everything through numbers and money, dimes and nickels. Tom, when it comes to I talk about the LU, students now VP, we have 9 VP, these conditions. In Fendel, they are going in the forest to ease themselves because there are no bathrooms. And so on that whole educational front, uh, meanwhile, they're calling for things in government, but you hardly hear them call for even to have their curriculum or their syllabus that we can look at. I wanted to send books to my niece there, and I said, "Send me your syllabus. Let me look at it and send you some books." She laughed at me and said, "We don't have it here." Tom, have we improved on that front? And I talk about the MCSS students, and I don't want to even talk about schools all the way behind God's back in Kilipo or in Fisibu.
Well, I think for me, I will look at the education sector as a whole and not only the government, but I think we've made some progress in the sector. We've seen these private universities grow from offering undergraduate degrees to graduate degrees. You can go to the African Methodist Episcopal University, where I graduated from. They now have a graduate school. You can go to Cottington. A couple of other ones have come out. Smart started as um, not a full degree granting institution. They've moved on to it now. So I think sector-wise, there's a bit of competition. There's progress that is being made. I think where much of the challenge is on the quality, in terms of the quality of students that are being put out. The University of Liberia, the Chinese did a lot of good for us to be able to build a Fender campus. For many years, the plan was to be able to move the undergraduate courses to Fender and then maintain graduate courses at the main campus on Capitol Hill. We haven't seen that come true. I think when they started initially, some of the students went over to Fendale and they were on campus. We've seen them open Sinje, a satellite or a branch of the University of Liberia in Cape Town. We've seen community colleges being open and they now started to grant degrees across the country. So I think sector-wise, there's a bit of an improvement, but again, quality remains a problem because we don't really have funds to be able to provide for laboratories, to build libraries, for people to be able to read. On the MCSS side, it's a bit of a sad situation because the MCSS was a model for us to be able to follow. And if you look at even the education law of 2011, that model was meant to be extended. All the counties should actually be looking like the way MCSS is looking. So they have their own budget, they can run their own affairs, and then the Ministry of Education can supervise them. But even the pilot project with MCSC, there's always a problem. And at the secondary level, since the 60s, 70s, when all these multilaterals were built, we've not really invested in infrastructure. We've not built new schools. Instead, the top men had the GW Gibson. They just manage them. And so they have these morning sessions, afternoon, and then night session. So on the infrastructure side, it's very poor. On the quality side, we have challenges, but again, sector-wide, when we look at it, I think on education, there's a bit of gradual transition that is taking place and improving access.
Thank you. Let me go to Dr. Booty. Dr. Booty, the conditions that existed that precipitated the kind of things that we saw, like Michael talked about 1986, and even before that, we saw under President Salif, the GW Gibson students. We saw sometimes it was alleged that even a student was killed. Those conditions that the students continue to advocate for, when we look at those, are we Have we turned the corner? Are we still the same, or we move backwards?
I think, to be honest, Dennis, there is a component of each of the things you've talked about, right? So, and I'm glad that Thomas touched on this in terms of the volume. So, in terms of volume and access, so we've got more universities now. So you've got more people who can access university. Having said that, when we talk about the quality of education that people are getting in Liberia, that is or can be questionable. Even though there are students in Liberia who graduate from Liberian universities who have shown themselves to be capable, the majority of them with degrees from Liberia tend to struggle when you pit them against similar peers in the West African sub-region, or even if you bring them further out into the wider global context. So on that front, in terms of quality of education, we would say that we've digressed. We've gone way. I think we even gone further back than the 3 decades that you're talking about. I think also one of the things I want to point out that we have to consider, and this is not a criticism, it's just pointing out a factor to consider, is that the population of the Republic of Liberia has grown a lot from when these institutions were created, when these infrastructures were put in place. And sometimes, as we always see, whether it be in the US or here in the UK or in Ethiopia or wherever, when you build something to host 100 people, and now you got 400 people having to utilize that thing, it stretches, the capacity of the thing to cope, right? So you have something or a system that was created for a few hundred students now having to accommodate thousands and thousands of students, and the system just can't cope. Unfortunately, and then my brother Ansumana touched on this, our officials of government are more interested in pocketing money for themselves and enriching themselves and their families instead of investing that money to bring these infrastructure up to standard, to bring them to a level where they can accommodate all of the thousands of students that want to go into it. And then obviously we can point to the fact that we're not creating jobs to absorb these people. So we're not really testing a lot of the students that are graduating. Yes, they might be having double degrees and have master's degrees and whatever, but we don't have also outside of that the employment sector that will be able to absorb them so that we can test all of these skills that they've learned, right? We're not really testing the skills that they learn as well.
Dr. Pearson, if you are dealing with a problem and the same problem keeps coming back, at least, like in the case of when Ebola happens and it was in Liberia and we beat it. So when COVID came, we were supposed to be like the people to look at to say, well, there was something even worse and this is what it did. So we learn from that and improve on it. It appears to me that we've been dealing with some of these same issues for the past 3 decades. Why is it so?
Thank you, Mr. John. It's safe to say that there are certain social problems will not go away, but there's something they call continuing improvement. You got to keep at it in order to maintain the quality and the value that you want to have come out of it. So I think one of our problems in Liberia, we mentioned multiple times, has been our ability to maintain things that we built or that we own. We get stuff when it's new, we're all excited about it, and then it just run down into the drain, and then we leave it and go on to something else. But this is what I want to say. The broader picture here, Dennis, for me is that, and some of my speakers before me mentioned, we need strong political will in our developmental sector, and we also need incentive that something that will incentivize people who are in charge of those areas, even if it's education. How do we incentivize education, like Dr. Fidel was saying? So if I'm going to trade school and I'm graduating, what is out there for me that will absorb me into the society? What excites me to want to go to school and come out even stronger? Say for instance, is our education competitive? Are we telling kids in universities, in trade schools, the best amongst the best will be absorbed into private institutions and public institutions, maybe for mentorship, based on your grade point average? And we know that the government cannot employ everybody, neither the private sector can employ everybody. But when the kids are aware that the brighter they are and coming out of university or being in university for whatever matter on your break time and thing between semester, you get absorbed into some mentorship across the country. You feel excited about your education. You want to improve. But right now, we graduate like 500, 600 students, sometimes per institutions. And these hundreds of students graduating to nothing. They go back to becoming money changers, bag rider. So nothing incentivizes them for for pursuing higher education. And I want to say this before I drop the line, Dennis. Listen, Thomas talk about infrastructure expansion. We saw that happening under Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, under President Weah also. But the quality of the education not only comes with the expansion, with the multiplicity of the institutions, the buildings. It comes with what is in the building there. Do we have the manpower to man those buildings? Do we have the educational equipments and tools that we need to have modern education facilitated? The books, the library, the laboratories. So why don't we take our time, like Padmo mentioned, instead of us having multiple institutions across the country, why don't we take our time and build, a few of them in central locations that will meet maximum standard that our people can learn and come out of there with quality education in addition to incentivizing their education as well.
Thank you. And Tom, I want you to conclude on this because you talk about this problem, this issue of quality. The reason we go to school education is to solve problems, right? To solve the problems that we face. So if you went to school, it should be able to change your behavior to do better, to contribute to, the country, the growth and development of the country. So if you say that the quality has been a challenge, I mean, what infrastructure have been a challenge. So if quality is a challenge, and like Dr. Pearson said, if we are graduating more 5,000 students, but they can't do the thing they're supposed to do, what they've been put out for, is it safe to say that we're moving backwards?
I mean, in terms of, like I said, in terms of access, we are gradually moving forward. But in
what
terms
good is
of
access if the quality is not there?
where maybe one of the good is that you have all of these people on Facebook just arguing whole day because everybody knows how to type on Facebook now. You can make a comment and all of that. So access creates its own problem. It makes the volume huge, but the quality is limited, and that's one of the problems that we are creating in the country. Because anybody going through these schools, they come out, they graduate, and then people take the part up, on the graduation day, they knock it. So that guy sees himself as an educated person. He no longer listens to anybody. So we have all of these experts across the country. They argue and debate on everything. But again, like Dr. Pearson was saying, the quality is the problem. And this is from the very beginning. One of the very critical areas that the government does not pay much attention to until lately is early childhood education. The government has no institution at that level. All of the government schools start from the first grade. And so if you are not going to give a foundation to the kids from year 1 to year 5, how do they go to the first grade to be able to pick up from there and move forward? And this is why you see many of the bright kids that you see across the country, in many instances, they come from the capital where you have that foundation that is laid. Outside the capital, many of the kids we have will be over age before they enter the first grade, and then they move on from there. So until we are able to invest in really textbooks, updating the curriculum, making sure that our professors themselves are researching and publishing, and then they can teach with quality materials, the quality is going to be a bit of a challenge. But again, one thing we have to say is that librarians are bright. With all of those challenges people can go through, and then they leave and even go out to be able to perform. So we have to really invest heavily in making sure that we build not only the infrastructure, but even the software, the systems that's supposed to be in place to make the schools to run. The University of Liberia, for instance, like I said a couple of shows ago, do we really see the university going to the industry and say, what is it that you need now? What are the new programs you want us to offer that can meet your needs? In many instances, when you see the university offering a new program, it's like a donor partner that comes to be able to support them. If you look at statistics, it's coming from this regional project that Lesgis is implementing. The new fisheries program that they are offering is coming from NAFA. The environmental program they are offering is coming from the EPA. The university itself is now sitting and researching and saying, let's offer a program in this area. So until that kind of research base can be there for the universities to be able to research, add new body of knowledge, the quality is going to be a problem. And if we cannot solve the quality problem, then quantity itself causes a problem or creates a problem for the country.
Yeah, and Fidel, I'll just give you 30 seconds because I saw a lot of things on your mind as Tom was talking, and I know this because of my 35 years teaching.
But no,
Go
the
ahead,
thing is,
continue
I
on
was agreeing. I'm agreeing with a lot of the things that Thomas is saying. I think where one of the areas that the University of Liberia is lacking is in research output. Right. I think a lot of what we do in Liberia in general is basically collect textbooks and just talk, 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 talk. I think creation of new knowledge is not something that we've done a lot of
So
work
let me
in, and it's
interrupt you.
something.
If research is lacking for a university, is that really a university? Or are we just moving backwards?
No, no,
Because, like
I
Tom
think
said, we should solve problem. We had this problem of water to Freeport ever since my father was a boy, right? We also now the flooding has even gone worse. We have this issue with we have Firestone from 1926, and still we don't have engineers. When Firestone left, we don't have one person to see, okay, let's see whether we can do this ourselves. We are not training people to solve the problems that we are faced with for years, for decades. So what's the purpose? Go ahead. Sorry for interruption.
No, it's fine. I think if you look at the UK system, for example, right, universities here are public institutions, right, but the running of the university in terms of selecting who's going to be your vice chancellor, or that's the person who's the president of the university, you've got a board of governors. Normally, is made up of experts, former graduates, and people from within the local area where the university is based. So the appointment of a vice chancellor is based on track record, right? Based on what you can deliver, based on a clear mandate that look, if you come in for the 5 years, these are the objectives that you need to be able to achieve. The president of the Republic of the University of Liberia is a political appointee, usually a crony of a president, and they're put there basically just because the president likes the person, not because the president has the capacity to do what needs to be done. So all of the things that Thomas is talking about, which I agree with, right? They're not doing it because these people don't actually understand how to run a university or what a university should be doing. The University of Liberia, as the premier university in Liberia, should be a research intensive university. I think I did my PhD research in Liberia. There are a lot of areas that you can do research in Liberia, a lot of topics that are unresearched. There are a lot of areas that are under researched as well that we could invest time and energy and money into. I think the university needs to think. I think the Minister of Education, having come from the university sector, should be partnering with the University of Liberia to try and help them understand that universities, leaderships need to go out there and look for money. What is it? Things like gender justice, things like infant health, and those areas that is now trending that are now trending globally. There are fundings available that you can go and tap into, and then you can start to bring people into Liberia. They don't necessarily have to be Liberians, but people who are researchers, people who are academics that can come in and help build this research intensive culture within the university. Unfortunately, I don't know how that's going to happen because I don't think, again, picking on Thomas's point, the university is not talking to industry. Industry is not talking to the university. So nobody's doing what the other person needs them to do for us to make education and the outputs that we're putting out to be relevant to Liberia and the economy in general.
It's fair to give Michael and Clarence the same opportunity. So Michael, university education. I mean, one of the issues that we face in Liberia or Monrovia area is water, clean drinking water, and we have so much water from Suniwen to Stockton Creek. Everywhere there's water. When I was in Lowell, Massachusetts, Merrimack Valley, the Merrimack River is that runs through the town. That's what we drink, right? But we in the midst of water and we can't drink. I saw that we don't have food, but we have the Labrador Food Authority. But that's another story. Coming to the university, we just watched the president of the university being selected or appointed by the president of Liberia. Every time when President Salih came, she came with her own president. When President Weah came, his own president. President Bouaka, his own president, and on and on. And there was I spoke to couple of those who interviewed for the job. One of them said, let's take the appointment of the university president outside the executive mansion. Because he said, right now I'm in the United States, I'm tenure. And I've been doing this all my life. I don't want to go in a situation where I leave my tenure job, leave all the benefits, and then the next day they say, this guy, the way he moving to university, look like I'm going to be president. And then they fire me. He said, I also see that at the time the university was one of the best in the world, we have 2 vice presidents. Now we have 9. He said we even have vice president for graduate school. Graduate school should have a dean, not a vice president. And all of these people, they have, it's a lot of money they've been paid. And so we just doing the same thing. University-wise, now, are we moving forward? Are we stagnated or are we going backwards?
Well, here's the thing. So a couple of things. That even I believe my brother Fidel mentioned. And even you said you made a statement which is quite profound, right? We are sitting in the midst of water, but yet we are thirsty. That can translate to so many things. We are sitting in the midst of fertile land, yet we are starving. We are importing food. There's so much that can translate to. But let's look at this. The president declares that agriculture is going to be the vehicle that will lift Liberians out of poverty. But look at the agriculture minister budget. Look at the budget for the agricultural department at LU. Look at the budget for Kear. It's like, I don't understand how we're supposed to do these things when there's zero funding. Zero funding. And you just say, okay, we'll do it. How is that done? You have to invest. That is the one thing that you can say this has improved, that has improved. That has never improved. We have never truly invested in what we want to happen. And because of that, we continue to have the problem. We have to invest. Some things have to hurt so we can invest in other things so that those things can drive where we want to go. So whether it's education, it's agriculture, it's clean water, it's healthcare, pick something, let's invest, and we don't see that. We continue to not see that. The only investment that continues to be made and increase on an annual basis is investment in government. That's what we see. We went from, I think Charles Siddle's budget was what, 66 million? Now we're at $600 million. And the only thing that we have increased investment in is government. How much we'll pay, how much your generator gas will be, how much your car will be. I mean, for a country that says every vehicle that we purchase will be $45,000, how much are you investing in education? And that's where we are. Until this government wakes up, or any future government wakes up and decide we're going to invest in the things that are going to move us forward, we will be having this discussion, or our children will be having the discussion.
Dr. Pearson, please conclude. Are we moving forward on that front? Are we moving backward, or we are just stagnated?
Thank you, Dennis. I think it's bit of both. And the reason I will say that is because sometimes we do seem to have made some progress, and then over time we retrogress because, like I said, maintenance problem is a serious issue. But being a graduate of the University of Liberia and more than one universities in Liberia, I can say for a fact that we do conduct research in Liberia. In fact, when you write your master's thesis, it's part of a research process. If you did your PhD thesis, it's part of a research process. If you did a bachelor's degree, most of our colleges in Liberia University, you do have to do a research paper. So I think we have not done enough to take it to the next level, like Fidel is saying.
I saw some of those research people, especially on the bachelor degree level.
No, Dennis, our colleges and universities do require those. Now, you see, we shouldn't mistake.
I've seen those papers.
Yeah, we shouldn't say that again.
They make me sad. I've seen those papers. I say I've seen those research papers, and they make me sad. But go ahead.
I don't know what you mean by that. Because your generalization is demeaning for a fact, and I would vehemently oppose to that. I would say yes, some papers are not of quality, but there are very good quality papers that are written in Liberia there. In fact, if I can recall, when I was at the University of Liberia in the master's program, we had international students that would come to Liberia, and we facilitated their research. All right, we helped them with their research, and they did good work. And today, they all what they had that we do not have is their education is incentivized. Their education is incentivized. What encourages a student to do a beautiful research in Liberia? For me, for instance, when I wrote my master's thesis, I traveled to both Sierra Leone and within Liberia. I funded it myself in order to get my thesis done. I was writing my thesis on the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions on Liberia's experience and Sierra Leone experience. I paid my own way, went to Sierra Leone, spent a whole week there. I was with the 4B college there. I had an interview, in-person interview with the head of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Bishop Ompa, and all of the civil society institutions, including the press, the media, the women groups, and religious leaders. So yeah, if you have the resources, you can do it. What I think is lacking, like what of us are talking about, is how much support do we put into the institutions? Say for instance, we got Legis there. Legis is one of our premier institutions for research. How are they facilitating, our universities and colleges when it comes to coordination of cooperation? But let me say this in our drive, because we don't have a lot of time on the show. Yeah. Let me say this, Dennis. I hear sometimes people complain that there is this something called too many universities, too many colleges in the country, and then they don't all have the level of equipment like laboratories and libraries. But take, for instance, we can have an educational collaborative sponsored by the Liberian government, wherein a very up to standard science lab can be put in a central location in Monrovia that will facilitate students exposure. Since we don't have the money to do for each of the universities in central Monrovia, we can have the city maybe per county, or in strategic locations where we have the proximity of universities are close. That way we give our students access. We can do the same with libraries. The library doesn't necessarily have to be located in the school compound. It can be in central locations where community kids can access quality libraries and books. So, I mean, there are so many things we can do. We got to be innovative, in my mind, so that we gradually get there, because we may not have the capacity to do it all at once, but we can get there. So I would say, let me close on this note. I contacted a friend of mine in Cardinal University. He's one of the deans there. And I said, our university should be research-based. So why would it take, if I want to help, so that we can make sure that the young people in the colleges are going out there and conducting research, like Fidel said, on issues that are developing in the country, whether social issues or political issues, whatever you want to call it, medical issues. And, like the drug issue, can students in those sectors go in those areas and do research and publish it from their campus? And then he said, Dr. Pearson, it is a very good idea, but it's going to be difficult to do. And I said, why is it going to be difficult to do? He said, because the children won't pay for their work. And I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't understand it. And why would somebody wants to be paid for me facilitating them with a research project that I will pay their way to go to do the research? I will get in the allowances that they will have to do, maybe to buy the little water or the whatever, but to do research in the name of the university and publish their reports. And then that didn't go anywhere, Dennis. That didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it shouldn't go. It wouldn't go anywhere. And I think the research Fidel was talking about is more of the faculty doing research, right? You talk about the student research paper, which I say you say is demeaning, but I want to stand by that because I read a lot of those papers, and it appears to me that they don't know what they're doing. The teachers or the professors themselves are not telling. I was helping some students at UMU, and I said, but before you come to this point of research, of doing writing your thesis, have you done anything? They have not even done correct paragraph or writing. So how do you write a research? But I want us to move. I want us to move on. Fidel, if you want to talk,
No, no,
with
I
10
just wanted to
seconds.
clarify. I just want to clarify 10 seconds the point. I agree with Clarence, Dr. Pearson, 100%. And I was talking about students as well doing research because I think it can be part of the curriculum, right? It doesn't only have to be, say, Dr. Pearson coming in and saying, oh, let me facilitate research, but at least one subject or one module in their course of training over 4 years should be a research model where they have to go out there, conduct primary research, analyze data, publish something, or produce something that can be publishable.
Yeah,
So
research.
Dennis,
You're giving students research to do. You have not even taught them research methodology. You have not done anything like
No, but
that.
I
those
know
will be the
Dennis,
things that you put in place now. If it's going to be a module, all of that
Yeah,
will be part of the module
right.
design. You teach
Because
them how
that's
to do
what I
research
see
and
most of the
everything.
time.
Dennis, that's not a fact statement you just made. It. We do have courses in research in Liberia and at our different universities and colleges.
What are those courses?
This broadcast is global, right? It's
Yeah,
international. So you cannot present a picture like the education system in Liberia does not
yeah.
have
Just give me some.
a
Just give me
research
throw some
department.
things at me.
And if you wanted to read a research right now in Liberia as an individual coming from abroad, you are not allowed to read that research until the research ethics committee can review your paper, your proposal. Let me tell you that for a fact.
No, that's true. I had to subject my research to that at the University of Liberia. So you have to go. There's an institution there. You have to go and sit before a committee, and obviously the $500 I had to pay for the fee, I was angry about. But obviously the process itself was acceptable. Yeah.
We'll move on to our next topic. I wanted us to talk about concessions, right? For uh, when we talk concession, the first one that comes to mind is the 1926 Firestone. But even past that, right? The way concession agreements are written and who will benefit, we all know the story about how that particular concession came into being. It's like we were forced, we had no choice but to sign it because of what they put us through. But things have not, to me, things have not really changed. Under President Saleh, we learn about those concession agreements, and we see this long term, 100 years, 125 years, 60 years. And sometimes what we get is, hey, when this is signed, these people take almost everything and give us peanut. I watched a video where the first lady of Sierra Leone was lamenting about that hey, whatever is done is extracted from us here. We just get peanuts. And if you try to stand up, either the powers that be, meaning the Western powers, will either raise up an opposition against you or do something to you. So we're powerless. We say Sierra Leone as a country, we're earning 0.001% of what was coming out. So we see like in Firestone and Golden Verulam and all these other companies in Liberia, where we export the raw materials and we import those things that are made from those materials at a very higher price. When it comes to concession, the way these agreements are written, the way the country benefits, have we moved forward? Have we gone backwards, or we still at that same point? I want Tom to start this one.
so concessions is a very critical um, uh, issue that we have to deal with as a country, and there's a lot of conversation that perhaps where we are is because of our dependence on these natural resources. We haven't been able to really diversify the economy to look at other sectors because concessions is like countries that have oil, right? You just go, you give a contract, people come and mine it and give you some money, and you live on that money. It also does affect the issue of taxation because these concessions are in place. the government doesn't pay much attention to whether our citizens are paying taxes or not. So it's a very big problem across these developing countries, particularly in Africa where we have weak governance. So the government will go into these concessions, they give out the resources, and in many instances we collect royalties, sometimes 2%, 3%. So this is extremely critical. There has been a lot of reform that have taken place to really be able to improve this sector so that it can contribute more to the economy, and then we can use it as a foundation to be able to diversify, to grow and reduce our reliance on it. But I don't think we've made a lot of progress in this area. So the PPCC law, the public procurement and concessions, so there are rules and regulations on how these concessions are managed. With time, we established the Bureau of Concessions, because we were having these concessions and then the monitoring became a problem. So it started as a unit. It used to be a unit in the Ministry of Finance. So we decided to establish it as an institution all by itself. So it's called the NBC, the National Bureau of Concessions. So the idea is that when these concessions are negotiated, and that negotiation process is laid out in the PPCC law, we have this interministerial concession committee. So if it is mining, then you have the Minister of Mines and Energy that will play a role there. If it is energy, maybe they bring all the stakeholders on board. If it is a concession in related to the port, for instance, the port is going to be there. So all these frameworks are set in place. But one of the limitations that we have in all of that system is the issue of citizens' participation and their voice. And so we have this issue of free prior consent. So for instance, if we are taking a piece of land to give it to a company to maybe plant palm or maybe do some agricultural production on it, the communities that are there, they should give their prior consent. But in many instances, the government does not involve them. They will only hear that this land has been sold to this company and therefore your village needs to move. So that weakness is there. And then when the concessions are issued, for us to monitor them, it's a bit of a problem. So for instance, they will say in the first 2-3 years, we promote Liberians to be managers. We will make sure that a Liberian is a vice president. But it will go through the 3 years or 4 years and it doesn't happen. There are some concessions that don't even have a clause for review. This concession at the port, what's the name of it? I've forgotten the name. APM terminals. Okay. So it was even passed without a clause to say that after every 5 years we are going to review it. And then the other difficulty about all these concessions is that for the NBC, when they are even being negotiated or they are being implemented, nobody has their time. Nobody pays attention to them. So we have a whole entity that's supposed to be monitoring them, but the legislature overcrowds the whole concession space. They are the one that pass it. And in many instances, they monitor it. When it's coming back for review, they say they take charge of it. So the whole system is very weak. On the agricultural side, we've given a lot of land to these agricultural concessions. They've displaced a lot of people. They've destroyed the traditional practices. They've destroyed the livelihood of our people, and yet we cannot get by what we need to get. So this is a continuous process. I know the Ministry of Mines and Energy is reviewing that whole process to see how it can be improved. But overall, I don't think we've made a lot of progress with how we manage these concessions.
So on that front, things not getting better. I know you want to stay away from.
I don't think we've made a lot of progress. Okay. Not much.
Dr. Pearson, want to come to you. You know, these are concession, right? I interviewed people from the Mano River Union, you know, the Norway camp disaster, and all these conditions that existed that caused that landslide that killed so many of our people. These conditions for a lot of these areas have not improved. All right. The last time we heard that the government came out and said, hey, you can't come from the Western cluster and run iron ore through the town, so we're going to stop it. After some time, they say, okay. They say, hey, we'll build a road. I don't know. We'll give 200,000. That was the end. In my hometown where I was born, where we had the airstrip, the plane will land there on their way to Bokondre. So they will land there and people will carry these things on their head. Whether they were doing it through government or the people of Bokonjiri are where nobody knows. So they just come there, we put the loads on their head, go there, they extract, bring the whatever sand, whatever in those bags that our people were carrying. Just you look forward to being paid $2 to work maybe 8 to 9 hours to bring, and those conditions have not changed. If people in Sino wanted to do something, by the time you look, some letter from Monrovia say, hey, we give them the go ahead, and then that's it. I talked to somebody in Sino, I said, you have a company that's planting palm trees. When my older sister was a baby, my father was planting palm trees. Are you telling me we can't plant palm trees? We need a concession. Somebody will talk about, okay, why don't we own these things ourselves? Why don't we have our own concession company instead of always having these foreign nationals to own them? Also, why can't we be shareholders of different ways to be able to get the maximum utility out of these agreements? What have things changed so that we can derive a little more from our natural resources, Dr. Pearson?
Thank you, Dennis. I start off where Thomas mentioned that there has been some improvement because you can hear me, Dennis, because I think I see you talking, but you pause.
No, I can hear you.
Okay. So from the post-war situation, we understood initially that a lot of the concessions we enter into were negotiated under constraint. We didn't have the power on the table of negotiation, so that was understandable. But as we've seen a level of progression over time, that we have more charge of what we can control, I don't see why we're not making a big strides towards improving. There's a phrase within the World Bank and the IMF, I think Thomas will know about this, called the natural resource trap. And I think that has been one of the major problems now that the World Bank and IMF are pushing us.
And one more good thing I would not know about it too.
The resource curse.
Dennis, I know you know about everything. Don't worry. And so it's actually the situation where, for just our listeners, situation where the country is more dependent on certain natural resources and in terms of exports, like our rubber and our iron ore and our gold and diamonds, some of what we have. But the problem with that is that those things are susceptible to the shift in prices on the global market, and then that impact our economy because of our heavily reliance on them. So we do not control those prices out there. Those prices shift based on changing economic factors and situations out there. So every time those prices gets hurt, it hurt our revenue envelope, and then it has an average effect on our budget and how we can spend for our country's development. Another thing that does, Dennis, and we need to highlight that, is that there's a high potential for conflict of interest where, like we're talking about, people hijack these concessions and then a few individuals benefit and cutting slack to the investors. But, I think what bothers me is this, right? If our leaders are listening, is the poor leadership in our country, the lack of political will from the top of our government. Imagine, you mentioned airstrip, Dennis. Recently, President Boyka traveled from Monrovia to Lofa County, and he landed on a dusty airstrip, an airstrip that is a dusty road. Not even like someone got cement in Liberia, not even cement paved airstrip, but dusty gravel road. And there was nothing that caught his attention, Dennis, to say, but I saw the thing here 40 or 50 years ago. We rode on the scene during a turbo time, during door time. We landed on the scene dusty road. Can we transition from this dusty road to a concrete slab? Maybe from concrete slab, then we go to asphalt. No thinking, no imagination whatsoever. Let me go back to this, then I'll leave you, Dennis, on this point. Listen, what has stopped us now that we have the capacity, I think, whether through consultancy or our own technocrats, what has stopped us from having a geological evaluation of the kind of minerals and wealth that we have? So that, like you see, when somebody wants to mine iron ore, We'll not just be counting the number of buckets that are on the train are going to Freeport, but we're able to determine what's the value of that old mine and what can Liberia stand to benefit, not 3%, but in good proportion to our wealth. What's stopping us? And President Boga just announced that they are discovered certain minerals or new minerals in the country, but that was all we heard about that. What are the plans towards protecting those or investing in those areas? Investment Commission has said nothing about that, or maybe following up to the public on those things. I think we're taking too many things for granted, Dennis. And Thomas talked about diversifying. We need to build human capacity. We need to strengthen our governance structure, respect for the rule of law, so that all of these things can tighten, towards us moving in the right direction. If not, it's sad to say we will keep going in cycles, Dennis. We'll keep going in cycles.
Dennis, just 1 second, just to, the Chinese recently helped us to do a survey. So when you heard the president say we've discovered new natural resources, and he mentioned all of them, potassium and all of these things, it came from the survey that the Chinese did. And I think this is the second one since the Americans helped us, I think around the 1950s. This is the second survey that we have done. I had a bit of concern about it because you have these Chinese people all over in the forest mining. So the person who's like going to the villages and mining the resources, that's the person we ask to come and look for it. So I don't know whether what they told us we have is exactly what we have, whether what the places they say it is, that is exactly where it is. But there was a recent survey that was done.
Good. And when it comes to these things, I interviewed some mining engineers who complain that when these concessions are written, the experts are not called. So the people that do these things that are politicians, so they don't have the experts to say, okay, this is how we should do it. Dr. Pearson talked about the prices, because global shift. Well, these things happen because if you are not setting your own price, you have the good, and then somebody is setting the price, and then you have to live with it. I don't know, like the way they have OPEC. We in Africa, do we have something for iron ore on our side? Do we have something for gold so that we can come together as a people and set our own price and dictate things instead of these things being determined all the time? Dr. Booty. What I want to add to Dr. Booty is if we look at and I've not really studied in depth what the Burkinabe president is doing differently, right? Because we don't want to advise, say, let's have coup so that we can do these things, because I wouldn't support coup d'etat. Also, we saw that Niger, after they took back the rights to sell their own products and take over their cobalt industry, said their revenues have gone way up, maybe 100 times more what they were getting. Sometimes these examples are a little bit extreme, but have we seen any shift when it comes to how we tackle these things so that we can get something from our natural resources?
All right, so I'm gonna try and touch on a lot of things. First of all, I appreciate Thomas, Mr. Kane, for your knowledge on my area of expertise. So I did my research for my PhD on land grabbing in Liberia, focusing my study on Senja district and the Sami Dabi land grab that went on there. I actually worked with some of the organizations like SDI, Action Aid, the Land Authority at the time, when Dr. Brandy was there, to advocate for the Land Rights Act that was passed in 2018, even though it was watered down significantly, taking out a lot of the rights that we were pushing for indigenous people across the country. Having said that, starting with the progress, have we made progress on that front in terms of having a law on the book? Yeah, we've made progress. That's the first time in the history of the Republic of Liberia that we have a legal instrument that defines customary land rights, right? That's the first time. That's the first time we have 4 different types of land ownership in Liberia: private, public. I think there's one other one, and then there's customary. So yes, on that front. But when we've been talking from education to now talking about natural resources, one of the things that always crosses my mind is that Liberians know how to BS, right? As a country, we know how to BS very well. whether it be the University of Liberia, it's just a show off, right? We've got university, oh yeah, but not doing nothing. Whether it be the ministry of whatever or the legislature or whatever it is. And it's the same thing with the passage of the various laws, because President Shirley came in and she brought in so many new laws and new instruments that were supposed to help transform Liberia to become very strong in terms of governance. But we have all these laws on the books. And the people who are supposed to be implementing the laws are the ones flaunting the laws. So I don't believe in this whole natural resource curse, because at the end of the day, if you look at a country like Liberia, we've got the rubber, we've got the iron ore, and we've got diamond and other stuff. And we know that those things are mostly in what we call a buyer's market. So the people who are buying, they tell us what price they want to pay for it instead of us telling them what we want to sell it at. So why don't we, and someone mentioned diversify, I'm not sure what it was, Dr. Pearson or Mr. Canning, but that is where you think if people understood and people had the country at heart, if our leaders were not banned on stealing and enriching themselves at the detriment of the ordinary Liberian people, they will sit down there and think, okay, look, since we don't have the political ability to push back on the US and China and the other guys in the WTO, because that's where they determine how much cocoa price is, that's where they determine how much to buy coffee. Even though we're producing the coffee and the cocoa, they tell us what to buy. We can't fight against that world order. What we then do is, can we then invest some of the 2% that we're getting into other industries in Liberia that will help us generate income that can withstand these price shocks on the international market? For example, Vietnam, Thailand, other countries around that Eastern Bloc are producing rice regularly, right? Send people there to go and learn how to produce rice in Liberia and produce rice in Liberia that's of top quality, so that when the price of rice go high on the international market, we ain't struggling too much because we got Padmo Farm producing 20 metric tons of rice, right? Or we got Jar Farm producing this many metric. Those are the things. When Dr. Pearson talk about innovation, that's how you become innovative. Because whether you like it or not, the Americans will determine how much they want to buy iron ore. Whether you like it or not, the Americans, as long as it's important to their national interest, they will tell us what you don't like it, they take you from there. We know across the continent, many African leaders have tried to stand up to the West, and those African leaders are no longer around.
But can we come together in an organization so that we can have that?
No, but that's and I don't believe we can, because when Nkrumah and Sekou Touré and them tried it, we have President Todman in Liberia undermining it, right? Because you will always find out of 50-something states on the continent, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 of them are so greedy that the Americans can just push
what I meant that, like,
and they will
those of
undermine
us with iron ore, let's say those of us that have iron ore or diamond or gold, we form like an organization. So
and the point is, how do you do that? You need to get the buy-in of all of the iron ore producing countries in Africa. And if one or two of them decide, no, we won't be part of it, because Americans say, okay, Mr. Padmo, your country, Mr. Jar, your country, Fidel, your country. Jar and Fidel jumping us, say they won't take $2 no more. Okay, Mr. Padmo will give $4, yeah. So just stay on this side. Mr. Padmo won't be, he said, that extra $2, yeah. Then he moved from beyond us. That's how they normally treat us. That's why we're always pulling and pushing around the place. The people understand our mentality and how we think, and they always use our division. Right? They use. Listen, these are complex problems, and I don't want to go into all the intricacies because most of us in here already know the geopolitics and all of these things. I'm just talking about Liberia. We can shift from depending on the natural resources as our sole means of generating income, diversify our economy so that we are producing more. Ivory Coast, I'm in the UK. Sometimes I go to the supermarket to buy banana, and it's on there from Cote d'Ivoire. Boom. Coconut, I go buy. Sometimes I see Cote d'Ivoire. Boom. You can't tell me Liberia can produce coconut and banana to the ship to the UK or to other parts of Europe, right? If we will sit down and be as innovative as Dr. Pearson mentioned and come up with ways to say, look, agriculture, we have the soil. Like Mr. Padmo mentioned, we have the soil. Let's invest in the soil. The low 2% we're getting, it not plenty, but if we keep investing it religiously, fairly, where people are not taking $15,000 a month for sitting there and going in hotel instead of going make laws in the legislature, and the other person won't be speaker, the other person won't be speaker. You're stealing this. If you can just focus on doing what's good for the people, but the biggest problem we have in Liberia, I believe, is not weak leadership, because I think our leaders are strong, but they're just strong on stealing, right? They're interested, and their strength comes to stealing. When it comes to taking away from the ordinary Liberian people, watching young children die from illnesses that are treatable, watching people get killed with the young people in the country that didn't do anything, so it's easier for them to turn to drugs because they're idle, right? There's nothing there for them to do. It's easy, and they're sitting there and watching other people's children die, right? All they care about stealing money. And until we can get leaders in there who actually look, I'll end on this. I was reading today on one of my breaks that Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso have come together with this fund, the development fund that they've set up, $833 billion US development fund to build railroads, to build airports, to interlink their three economies so that they can produce things locally for themselves, right? That military leader, we say, oh, coup. And none of us will advocate for coup, but we can learn from them. The democracy can do the same thing the guys doing in the military. Think about the people, do what's in the interest of the look. $800 million budget, 700 and something million of that going to package change and salaries. It don't make sense. The economists in the room, Mr. Kanye will tell, it does not make sense. How can you develop when over 80% of the money you're supposed to be spending on services for the people goes into servicing a few individuals?
Thank you. Example of that is MCSS school system, right? They have 4.2 million as their budget. Guess how much of that goes to salary? 3.9. So the one that is remaining is not even able to clean the bathrooms throughout the year. Mr. Patmo, let me come to you there. This, I mean, you heard everybody, so just come in.
Okay. So I'm going to come from a different point of view. So bear with me.
Yeah. That's why I saved you for last.
I believe it was Dr. Pearson that mentioned this really, really brilliant idea of, look, no one institution has the ability of building a science lab. So why don't the government just build a science lab in a central location for everybody?
I met when Dr. Dubai Christian, who's now the MPhil, we met. We all came from the same high school. So when we met, I said, Dr. John, why don't we just set up a private lab in Monrovia? The same way we went to USIS to read. Why don't we come together and set up a lab and the students, high school in Central Monrovia, pay to come to our lab? But mama, if you, not because you get a wrinkled neck, so they will give you the chain. If you don't get a chain, the person who get your wrinkled neck can't help. Go ahead, sir.
But great idea, not so good solution. Government. Our solution is to step away from government. We need to shrink government. We need to get government out of education. We need to get government out of healthcare. We need to get government out. One institution doesn't have the capability of doing that. Then why don't you coalesce with the other institutions? You'll come together as one group. You bring your own $1, I bring my own $1. Together, we built a lab. Institutions together built a lab because they will know what they want. They know what they need. They know the money is hard to come back. So they will be strategic, on how they spend it. That's the thing. Look, a concession comes to Liberia to open the first thing. As soon as they enter, the government asks them for money. They ain't even put one shovel in the ground yet. The government asks them for money. Where do you think people are getting the money from? They're not taking it from their profit. They're taking it, it's only one pie. They're taking it from the expense budget that's supposed to go towards human resources. And then after the government take their own, Then the next one they come in, oh yeah, you need a big school. Oh, by the way, you need a big hospital. Oh, and by the way, you need to get every employee beggar rest on the 1st and on the 15th. And you need to, I mean, like, these people come to make business. Why are you asking them for all these things? When they have done all this, what will government do? What will government do? So if a company comes, instead of asking them, instead of demanding, not even asking, but instead of demanding that they pay fair wages to the employees, you tell them, say, oh, build school. So if a company comes and wants to pay $15 an hour, $15 an hour for a miner to go underground and dig whatever he needs to dig, and you come and tell them, say, oh, you need to build school, they're going to take money from around that $15. Maybe now he's making $12. Then they come and say, you need a big hospital. They take another $3 from that $12. Now you're making $9. Then they come and say, oh, you need to divide rice. You need to bring clean drinking water. You need to bring current. You need to bring this. Before you know it, this man probably that would have been making $15 an hour, now he's making $2 an hour. The school is not up to standard. The hospital is not up to standard. The water is contaminated because these people, they don't know how to run schools. They don't know how to run clinic. But if you tell them, say, go in the ground and bring the diamond out or bring the gold out, they know how to do that. That's why they're here. 3 things the government needs to demand. 1, pay fair taxes, pay fair wages, respect the environment. That's all that. This is the answer to all our problems. If you pay the people will buy their own rest. They will send their own children to school. They will pay their own hospital bills. You don't need to do those things for people. But from Firestone time, every single company that comes will get in the same sheet. I don't know why they're keeping that sheet, but that sheet is the same. You need to build school, you need to build house. And so they half-weighted things. And as soon as they leave, everything breaks down. Because you haven't built anything substantive. All those things are temporary. And they are just stenciled. And that's why you see in Cape Mount or Kenja, this is what you see when you go to Golden for Verizon, or whatever you call it. And you just concession to concession, metal, steel, it's the same thing over and over. Now you ask a question, has these things improved? No. I'm old enough to remember bomb mines. I don't know who old enough here than me, but I'm old enough to remember bomb mines. I remember Yekepa. I went Yekepa. Yekepa, when you went Yekepa, you were not even in Liberia. You were in different place. When you went bomb mines, when you enter that fence, 24-hour electricity, everywhere you take, air conditioner blowing you. I mean, everything was on spot. The people, once a week, the garbage truck used to come, just like in America, and pick up your garbage in bomb mines. Now I'm looking to day. Look at the concessions we have. The people are living in containers. And I'm like, hold on. So you're trying to tell me we signed concession from 1950 and they were building concrete houses for people. And in 2025, we are signing concessions and people living in container? Like, we're not even stagnant. We are going backwards. Because can you imagine if the people had come to Todmont and say, we're not going to build concrete houses in Lac, we're not going to build concrete houses in Bekepa or bomb mines, we'll put the people in containers, what the presidents at that time would have said to these investors. And today, we embrace it. We see it like normal. We are going backwards. We're not even staying still.
And
let me just say, I was born in bomb mines actually, and I enjoyed all of those amenities until you started the war. And when you came with your war, I made some of us stop enjoying those things.
That's why I was when the war started, though. I was in the camp there when the war started.
And Budi, I don't know if you saw bomb mines. It was in Yekepa that I first used the telephone, right? Where you just dial, you know.
Yeah, I was born in bomb mines. We had the swimming club, we had the tennis court, football, we had the gymnasium. You know, we went to school with international students, and yeah, I used to go to the supermarket and just use my
School.
dad.
You went to Pontown school, eh?
I was in Pontown school. I would use my dad's employee number to get stuff. I didn't have to carry money to the supermarket. Just go there, call your bar employee number, they give you the thing, and then take it from your salary at the end of the month. And you know, and we were living in glass house with no iron bars and stuff like that. You know, police
And that's
patrols and all those kind of
the
stuff.
same
Yeah.
glass house my sister living in Le Trac in Lamco, you know, Era J, right?
Yeah, when the part where they came with their Warsaw, you know, all these
Oh,
things.
no.
Dennis, listen to the fun. Dennis, listen to the fun. I went November to vote in Bon Mines. I cried. I saw the whole place in forest, in bush. I cried straight, my man.
Yeah.
The whole place is in bush, covered by grass. Nobody said to even say, let me clean the house and use it. Everything just covered in bush.
Yeah. And look at this school in River G. They are sitting on the ground. It's not even a floor. Okay. So when I was in high school, they used to talk about the 25% surrender scheme, where government assigns, say, hey, Bon Mines, you for every $100, give us $25. But then the guy who is assigned there, they say, hey, my man, we know we made $100, but you know we'll give you $10. So tell the people that we made $5. So sometimes this thing go back to, you know, the big OC corruption, right? People not standing for anything. As long as you alone get it, you don't care about the rest of the people. And it's I want us to move on our last topic before we bring in the colors. And all of us touch on it, and that's the governance piece, right? President Thomas was accused of nepotism. You could see the list still goes around how many of his cousins, you know, in-laws, and everybody that was in government. So it came with the PRC overthrow and everything else. And then President Doe was being accused of having a minority crown ethnic group dominating. Okay. When President Ellen came, I mean, your children will say, oh, this is nepotism. Then we came to say everything is just Southeastern. Then President Bouakai came to say everything is Lufa. Right? So that piece, we still struggle with it now. We also see that, okay, some will say, well, as long as they are competent, but we still have these square pegs in round holes all the time coming, going. Then we look at the rule of law, because everything that is happening, if people are able to get justice, if justice is blind, then your hope is in that at least with all the way I've been ill-treated, I can seek justice. And, you know, somebody will hear me. But we see time and time again, justice only for the well-connected, the rich, and the powerful. Okay, I watched and there's nothing, and Dr. Pearson will say, well, it's demeaning, but I watched the Supreme Court hearing, and I see, you know, justice is talking like regular people. I was not impressed, basically. You know, the language that was being used, it felt like I was, you know, listening to some fireside talk, and maybe I've been too harsh. But when it comes to governance, the way we approach these things, there is, when President Salif came, created all these groups, these area, new laws, and like Dr. Budi said, these new instruments, because maybe somebody wanted them. Oh, if you get this, we're going to give you this prize, the MCC scorecard, and so all these different groups were set up. And so when the funding dry out, we see scaffold, we just see their shells there. All right. I saw today a letter came out from first, before I even get to that, President Bouakai now has more advisors than even cabinet ministers. You go to the Freeport Authority, you see over almost like 19 to 20 plus directors. And all these groups, we just witnessed when I saw the Food Authority. So I called Thomas. I said, Thomas, you know a lot more about the government. Where is this Food Authority come from? Thomas said, myself, I'm scratching my head. I've never heard of it.
I got the information later on.
Okay, good. Now, there's one director at the Freeport. Today he wrote, Michael Tipperson, I saw on his Facebook, he said, hey, I'm resigning. But before I resign, April 30, give my scratch card, my back arrest, my gas slip, my and you have 19 to 20 of those directors that are getting paid, that are getting Duke told me, say, this whole scratch card and things came together during the interim government because we were not taking pay. So they say, okay, yeah, gas. Now we're taking pay, people are taking pay, and we still have gas slave, we still have scratch card, we still have cars, we still have all these things. Even in your own house, I'm in my own house in Bannersville or Nuclear Town, and I'm getting housing allowance. Money, and people are in place. They are doing jobs that you can't even imagine. We are expanding government every day. Dr. Peterson, what is changing here? Are we going backwards to the way the government is governing us? All things improving since the last 3 decades.
Dennis, you asked me a sad question. Now I see I'm slow to answer. I mean, just by hearing the question alone takes the breath out of me. I think it's sad time in the history of our country. I don't know what to say. Technically, these are the worst leaders we've had in years. In years. Coming out of a civil crisis, you would have thought that Liberians would have learned their lessons. You thought would have learned from the past and say, listen, not only that we're coming from out of war, but the war has put us way back, and now we have to catch up with the rest of the world. Simple, Ghana near us, Ivory Coast near us, even down to even little Sierra Leone. Everybody's pacing ahead of us. And we find ourselves in a country where the minimum in leadership cannot be observed. I think it is sad. When you talk about the whole tribal thing, I think one of those who mentioned before that participation in government should be based on merit, and the country should be seen from that position of human resource strength across. I mean, all Liberians, regardless who you are and which country you're from. But come to think about it, Dennis, and I'll close on this. The reason why society has transitioned over the years when you study anthropology, especially when you look at cultural anthropologies, is because at the end of the day, people learn from what is happening around them, and then laws are formed, rules are made, norms are established. I think I've come to change my mind drastically on this whole thing about tribal politics, because, listen, I don't see why President Boyka wants to have a lofa man over the security, lofa man over central bank, lofa man over Ministry of Finance, lofa man over fishery, lofa man over LTA, lofa man over everything else. Everything else. I think it's about time that our government should now begin thinking, our legislators should think and say, listen, we thought we can do it better without law, but now we need a law. There are certain cabinet positions. I'm not saying the entire government, but cabinet position where it's almost like a federal position for us, because we want to decentralize the government, so we want to spread out the counties. So cabinet position becomes like a federal, level positions. Let there be some level of equity. I'm not saying there will be equality there, but let there be some level of equity in how we distribute positions. There has to be a place where the president put his foot down and said, listen, go make me another list. Lofians cannot be the only educated people in Liberia at this time. No, because the country is made out of 16 counties. They said 15 counties went to Bapulu made 16, right?
15.
15 counties. All right, but with the 15 counties, how will you? Somebody, I argue with somebody initially from President Boyka tenure. I said, Lofa got many ethnic group, many tribes, so that's why the puppet doing it. But now it's beyond reason to me now, and I think Dennis, this in our past has caused us with the Congo people serious crisis. This caused us with Samuel Doe serious crisis. And I think if we are not careful, we're going back to where we are building resentment against each other in the country, and we'll start resenting people because of their tribes and because they are dominating. And since I'm going to Liberia next month, I'm going to change my citizenship from Liberian to become a Lofian and see if I can get a job as a Lofian. Being a Liberian does not give me a job, then I got to become a Lofian. But I mean that's just being sarcastic. But I mean that's how I mean, laughable this has become, Dennis.
And you say it has gotten worse.
Dennis, more than worse. It's like when you eat too much soda. So our stomach is running with it right now.
Dr. If you want to be part of the conversation, the numbers are on the screen. You are in the US, call 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403 #. Locally, if you're in Liberia, the call numbers are 0770-573-477 or the orange number 088-1871670. Dr. Booty.
Well, I agree with Dr. Pearson. I think we've arrived at the stage now in our country where there has to be a law that says that there has to be a distribution, right? Every county in Liberia, even Riwaji, I think that's the youngest county, right? They get plenty educated people in Riwaji too. There are people from Riwaji that can run ministry. So we should have representation from each county. I think the way the president is doing, especially, and again, I know Mr. Samoa very well, right? When you suspend someone and pay them millions of dollars just to get rid of them, just to bring your own person in, then that becomes a problem. When you go and suspend everyone at LTA to bring a bunch of people from Lofa in, that becomes a problem, right? When you are saying to me that, again, I respect Mr. Gafwan. I think he did a good job when he was there under President Sirleaf, but you cannot tell me that since his time, we ain't developed any economist in Liberia. Mr. Cannon, you can't tell me we don't have anyone else over that period in the last 6, 7, 8 years who is more in tune with the Liberian economy. Because Gafwan was in Uganda, right? He wasn't in the Liberian economy. He didn't know what was going on. He don't know the new stresses and strains in the country. But you bring him to kind of run it when he's not being part of the thing. And go back to the whole research thing. That's the whole purpose of research. Because when you do research, you understand the new things that are happening, the new problems that need solutions. This guy ain't know none of the thing. Now he's telling us, we want to tighten our belt. Tighten belt? You should be telling us how we'll solve the problem. He said, we want to tighten belt. Why you open a belt and you're tightening? You're the government official then. You're still collecting your 15,000. Then you say, we want to tighten belt. What kind of nonsense is that?
Prioritize your priority.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's looking bad. The president cannot tell me that he can't see this. It's wrong that you would think that a county that we finish taking Babolu for now, so not even that big again. It's smaller. You can't tell me the county that small. That sometimes when it comes to voting, we worry about Monserrado and Lima County and Bon County. We don't even care about local vote, right? You're telling me that county has more educated people per capita. Because that's what you're telling me now. Per capita, they have more educated people than every other county in Liberia. Hence, they need to dominate the government. That's not possible. And if they don't stop doing this, people will get upset. People will be disenchanted with it. And these are the kind of things that start to bring up unrest and put the country in a situation that it shouldn't be. So yes, we've gone back. Yes, his sons might not be in government, right? But at the end of the day, his kinsmen are in government. And it's the same thing. They don't have to be called Bwaka. Once they're from that same neck of the wood, we can see why you're doing it, especially when you start breaking laws. The same 10-year laws that you and President Sirleaf put in place, now you're trampling over all those laws just to put your local people in government. It's not looking good. And in politics, perception is a big thing. When it looks like it, that means that's what's happening. And the president needs to take heed and listen to what is going on around him.
Thank you. And Sumana, they said maybe in the 80s, representatives were making like $300. Now, things continue to go up. I asked Mr. Musa Bilete the other day that do you think the money in the legislative branch, that's what causing the problem? He said, no, it got nothing to do with it. If you're operating a 1 million budget plus as a speaker, you don't think people are going to fight? Even if it caused Koga to jump over body, he wouldn't do it?
Yes, he will. Yes, he will. And if he got to create a body, he might even do that as well. Look, you take the money from in there. Even when Boga call a cousin, you can't do that job. You say, my man, I'm going on there. What the bank governor, who I know very well, he's a family friend, not just a personal friend, but he's a family friend. I'm sorry, now his name escaped my mind. But the thing is, do you think you're making $50,000 a month when you're to Abby? Abby will not paying that money. No bank paying that money. So why then, when you leave IB, that is a private bank, and you go to a government bank, even when the people pay you that package, money for your money business, that is unrealistic. As a matter of fact, as the new governor, we are going to sit down as a board of governors, and we are going to review salaries and benefit packages, and we are going to start off on a better foot. I mean, what would it take to do that? What would it take to do that? What would it take the president to do that when it comes to his ministers and heads of SOEs? What would it take the pro temp, the speaker, to come together and do that when it comes to their compatriots and their colleagues? I mean, it's sad, man. It's extremely sad. And that's what we'll come to. Because even after we've put everything in place, like you said, the big C, corruption, is going to rear its ugly head. And at that point in time, it's going to take leadership. It's going to take leadership. It's going to take people with leadership to say, this is how it needs to be done. This is how it's going to be done. If you don't like it, go. And people will go. Later, people will go. They will look at that money, that small, instead of that small money I'm coming where for. No, I prefer to stay in the US. I'm not coming down there. Oh, that is small money I'm coming where for. I prefer to stay at IB than to go over there. I prefer to stay in the private sector. I prefer to go make my farm than to go sit down over there 8 hours a day, working like a dog. So then what happens is that you get the dedicated people. Because only dedicated people will answer that call. Not people looking. People come now because they look at the amount. That's why they're coming. That's why he's bringing his people from Lofa. Because they're attracted to the amount. If you take the amount off, you kind of de-escalate all that urge for those things to happen.
But Mr. Padmo,
yes.
Why do you think a young man like Michael Tipperson, I mean, when he was running for senator, he said, we are not too young to lead. Why do you think he's emboldened to say, I will appreciate if the NPA management under your leadership can pay my benefits owe me, rice allowance since October, gasoline and scratch cards since 2025. Is it not embarrassing for someone to say, hey, you don't give my scratch card even though I'm getting paid? Why do you think a young man like that is emboldened to come and say, hey, you don't pay me scratch card, you don't pay me gas, you don't give my rice?
It's extremely embarrassing. I've been on several shows with Mike before he got this job, before the boycott government came, when there was the weird government. And we're all singing the same song.
Yeah, you guys were the
same step. Yes. Now all of a sudden, boycott government come, then you go join and start doing it. Then you not only join and start doing it, and leave quietly, but now you put it on black and white, on paper, asking for scratch card. Can you imagine that in rest? In rest, I mean, like when you are here in Minnesota working in the bank, the police will give you scratch card, the police will give you rest at the end of the month, and the salary that they gave you, that what you live by, you work with that one. The apartment or the house that you got, you look at your budget and you say that one I can fit in. But in Kola Bureau, then you just. Oh man, it was when I saw that today, I really lost a lot of respect for my fellow colleague. I never thought that he would be that low. But then again, I don't know why am I surprised? I mean, that's what the people do, And until we get true leadership, even Sekou here in Minnesota running his business. He employed the people that he employed to run his business. How many directors he had in his business? He was running a skeleton staff because he understood the smaller the staff, the more effective the staff, the more profit that he makes. But then he go now to NPA. Oh, that government money, man. I would just bring as many directors as possible. Because when I get director title, then I can get you a $45,000 a salary to justify your salary. So I'll make director. You know, if you never did that when you're running your little company here in Minnesota, why would you go Liberia and do the same thing? You know, and so sometimes when people fire on diaspora, I see where they're coming from. The few that are there are not behaving. If you know better, do better. And they are not. And so, yeah, we find it.
But Mr. Palmer, my principal used to tell me, say, when the head is wet, the whole body is wet. So, to what extent is the head?
You know what? That's what came to my mind on a show.
All right, let me go to Tom. Tom, give me some hope here.
When it comes to governance, we hardly have bright spots. You know, my colleagues have discussed the loafer issue, so that comes from the issue of participation. But I just wanted to take the broader issue of governance, and this is our greatest weakness. This is why much of the problems that we have is coming from the weaknesses we have on the governance side. So what is governance? Governance is a combination of the processes, the institutions that we have in place, and the practices that we follow to make decisions on the resources that we have as a country to be able to develop.
Repeat that.
So governance is the processes, the institutions, and the practices of decision making on how we allocate our resources and how we use them to be able to develop as a country. So let's go back to even the concession that we're discussing. There are different principles of governance: participation, inclusiveness, transparency, accountability. So now, for instance, the Metasti agreement is being negotiated. You were talking about Express having no input. Concessions are negotiated and they are so tight in the interministerial concession committee that no citizen knows what is happening there, what is being discussed there. So even if you are the best iron ore expert for Liberia, you are sitting in Minnesota or you are in Philly, you cannot make an input because you don't even know what is happening. There are concessions in Liberia where the citizens are crying to have a copy of the concessions, to know what are the benefits that they need to get, and they cannot get it. So therefore, the issue of transparency is not there. The issue of participation is not there. So governance is our major problem. The national budget, I keep saying every day is developed in Monrovia. That quite recently, people started going to the counties and asking the citizens, what do you want us to include in the national budget this year? That budget is for the entire citizenry of Liberia. But do we go to Bapolo to ask the people, what do they want us to include in the budget? What is their interest? What are their priorities that we need to spend on? The budget is developed between Broad Street and maybe Congo Town, because there are hardly government ministries in real life. Except the FDA or the other institutions. So if you look at all of the indices, rule of law index will be low. Governance, government effectiveness will be low because our governance is very poor. The processes that we have, the institutions that we put in place, we don't follow them. We have a procurement law, but we not follow it. We have this institution we created called Information Commission, right? So that when the citizen needs any information in the government, they can ask for it, and the government is obliged, based on the information law, on the public information law, to provide it. But you go ask the legislature and say, give me your budget for the retreat you had. They will not even pick you up. They will not give it to you. And if you file information or request, they will not respond to you. So on all of the principles of governance, whether it's participation, it's inclusiveness, it's transparency, it's accountability, we perform very low on these. And governance is so critical that if you cannot get it right, even growth will hardly take place. Because the growth is, I mean, the return that we get on growth goes to a very limited number of people because our governance is very poor. So, I mean, governance is our major problem. And since the Civil War ended, we've been trying to improve it by creating institutions. All the accountability institutions we've created is to improve governance, but they themselves have their own limitations because in many instances, the political will is not there. There a few times I was just thinking, across all of these countries in Africa, we say political will is not there. If you have a company that can manufacture political will and sell it out there, you make a lot of money because it's the most limited commodity in Africa, in all of the developing countries. Every time we want to do this, but there's no political will, just manufacture it, package it, and just sell it to governments, and you make a lot of money.
Well,
And
Dennis,
Tom,
you heard it. You heard it now. We're going to start our company to produce political will. That's how we're going to get rich.
Yeah, you make a lot of money.
Tom, our governance advisor here, admin, always tell us that this whole thing, the leader, the president, is like the one who is directing the symphony orchestra, right? Because the way he moves his hand, that's how the people follow. So let's cut to the chase. From President Taylor, we saw how he directed the symphony orchestra, President Sirleaf, President Weah, and now President Boakai. And you talk of governance. So how do we move from one to another with the person directing this orchestra? You know, when they move their head, so that's how the whole country will go. I was coming here and I was thinking, say, well, President Thomas had a long coat. You know, everybody was wearing that. President Thomas came with the total involvement, high, everybody wearing that. Madam Salih came with the big hair tie, all the women wearing that. President Weah came with pro, everybody wearing that. President Boakai came with a hat, nobody wearing President Boakai hat. What happened? Tom, what has been the symphony orchestra, according to Mr. Ahmed Salih? That's the president. To what extent has the president, this successive president that I named to you, have been responsible for the governor issue that you spoke about so eloquently?
I mean,
This is Talking Thursday.
Yeah, we can put Charles Taylor aside.
Yeah, let's put him aside.
You cannot even talk about good governance within the context that Mr. Taylor was in. He had peace of the country, his government reign. I mean, we never had really peace and tranquility in the country when he was president. And he was one of the ruthless. We understand the central bank was at his house. So let's leave him out. We come to Madam Salih. When she became president in her first term, she really worked hard to be able to build the foundation for governance moving forward with some limitations and lapses. And one of the lapses were on the concession side. We saw that great work that Mo or Stevens did, that all of the states, many of the concessions that we passed did not comply with our laws that we had on the books. And many of them were in the agriculture sector, the mining sector, and all of that. So there was a limitation there. On the transparency accountability side, she started to put some of these institutions into place. Many of them, though, were requirements. For instance, the LACC was part of the debt waiver program that you have to establish them. So that foundation was laid. She tried to really put policy framework in place. We had we had these mining laws that were passed. We had the energy plan that was developed. So they did a lot of policy work in her first term, in the first 6 years, to set the foundation to improve governance. But in her second 6 years, when Robert Salih came, I mean, he became the prime minister. She herself, the laws that she put in place, she never followed them. The work that she did in her second term was to appoint ministers. Every time you went or e-marshal, there was a new set of ministers. And it was that time where when she appointed a minister, the minister carried the deputy and the assistant. So you will see a long list. So governance in her second regime, in her second term, was extremely poor. And then President Weah came. He never paid attention to all the rules that were on the books. Everything he and Maggie wanted, that's what they did. So again, on governance, we failed. President Boakai is trying to repair it, but still there are weaknesses where he really needs to be able to improve on. So, I mean, going across this president, governance is that weakest link that moves from one regime to the other. And since the Civil War ended, we're trying to improve this, but there are major weaknesses on the governance side.
And so, on that governance side, you know, following what Tom said from President Salih to Weah, on that governor, based on the one directing the symphony orchestra, are we moving forward? Are we going backwards? or still the same? 30 seconds.
I think we're still the same. At that point, I'll give it still the same. We're still the same. In the beginning, I thought we were moving backward, but the more it reviews itself, it seems like we're still the same. There's no difference between we are and Boyka. There really is no difference. The same complaints, the same issues, the same problems, the same lack of visions, the same corruption, the same overpayment, the same budget. There is no. We're stagnant. We're stagnant. Liberia made a really, really bad choice when it comes to choice of presidency, and I think because of that, we're stuck where we are for the next 5 years. Definitely.
Dr. Mali, Dr. Booty.
Well, I think we've gone backwards. I think when I joined, so there's the program I do on a Sunday called On Point. When I joined, we had a brother called Elvis Morris, and he made a comment that stuck with me. Right, he said, "It's hard to admit that President Weah was more of a law-abiding president than President Boakai is," and I think this president has flaunted the law of this country so much. That even the legislators are now calling on the president's legal team to come and explain why they're breaking the law as much as they're doing. But we have tried a couple of things. When he couldn't work, he went to the legislature and tried to get things changed that way. That's the way to do it. At least, even though we don't agree with the changes that they were trying to make, but go through the right process, right? I don't think this president understands the mandate that the people give him. It's a very slim mandate. It's not one that is overwhelming. So whatever he's doing is diminishing the trust and will of the Liberian people. And very soon, I think 2026, when we go to the midterms, the next senatorial elections, we will see the Liberian people start to kick some of these guys out to send a message like they did to President Weah in 2018, I think 2020, when a lot of the CPP candidates got elected as senators. So let's watch this space.
Dr. Pearson, can I just say what
I concede to you, Dr. Booty. You're absolutely right. I concede to you.
Thank you, Ansumana.
Dennis, if I can just take 30 seconds on that slim margin. What we've seen in other countries is that because of that slim margin, that's where ruling administrations will have to work over plus because the margin is really slim. Because sometimes when you win with a huge margin, people get to the point where they say, okay, but the people, they give us this overwhelming mandate. Even if I work hard, I don't work hard, the people already like me. And I think that's one of the things that President Weah fell into. That he thought the people loved him so much and he did everything that he wanted to do. So I think my expectation would be that this current administration, with that slim margin of 1%, you have to work over plus to make sure that you justify that even though you gave me a slim margin, but I'm able to drive everybody along. But if the margin is slim and then the transformation is very slow, then you're just putting yourself in problem.
We have 6 minutes to close the broadcast. So, Dr. Pearson, on the Symphony Orchestra being directed by Ellen, Weah, and now Boakai.
Well, I think Charles Taylor was a better political leader than Boyka and Weah put together. I think Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is a far more better political leader than Taylor and Weah and Boyka put together. Boyka is yet to convince me that he's a better leader than Weah. And for me, like, you rather put it, you give the imagery an orchestra. The sound of the music you produce will determine the quality of the orchestra director. And President Boyka has shown nothing but chaos in his first maybe 15 months, 18 months in office, and 12 months or so, 13 months in office, 14, 15 months in office. Everything is nothing but chaos. People would disagree with me, but I believe that strongly. And the reason I will close by saying the reason I believe that is because all of the trash that he mentioned about George Weah, or majority of us talked about George Weah, is yet to be proven convincingly by this administration. So if they have the head in the closet, so if there anything hiding in the closet, they should be able to want to bring it out and validate the different excuses and accusation we had against the CDC-led government, and they failed miserably on that. We from the initial stage we heard audit. Now the audit has gone into coma. We heard bad governance, now it's going to coma, and the 40+ years experience is by far the most disappointing of all in this current government. And President Boaga has not shown that he have that experience. Zero, nada.
Thank you. But to Charles Taylor, who was ruthless, abuse of human rights.
You're looking at qualities. Maybe you're saying he was ruthless. I'm saying he was a better political leader.
I don't know what that means. So, but let's leave that. We have
let me
3
tell you,
minutes.
by challenging me, it means my integrity on the line right now. Let me tell you something. Listen, former President Charles Gange Taylor did not have, coming out of the immediate situation, the civil crisis, did not have the level of opportunities that we have right now. And yet, and still, our economy.
We had the opportunity to kill people. I don't want to.
Let me defend myself because I put a very tight rope, and now you want to hang me by the rope.
Yeah, that's a very.
And I want to say this clearly: if you brought former President Charles Taylor in Liberia right now, Liberian people prefer him with his leadership quality. I'm not talking about the excesses that came with the civil crisis. If you put former President Charles Taylor in that country right now, you have a better Liberia.
I don't want us to go there because we don't have
time.
No,
but see, even the point, they say you should compare president, then you say he's a good political leader. So you leave his presidency out.
No,
so I didn't leave that out. One second. When you say he's a good political leader, you are discussing in the context of his political party. That's when
no.
One second.
We have 2 minutes to close, gentlemen. Mm-hmm. We have 2 minutes to close.
So for me, let's just leave Chancellor out. You can't discuss Chancellor.
No, you can't leave him out. You can't leave him out. No. I understand your bias, but you can't leave him out. No, you guys have Western bias against Charles Taylor, and that's wrong.
It was one of the darkest period in the country. It
was dark not because of Charles Taylor, right? It was dark not because of Charles Taylor alone, right? Dennis, like Dr. Pearson has just mentioned, right? Yeah. President Taylor, immediately after his election, the U.S., the Guineans launched a civil war against him, right? Immediately after.
He launched a civil war in Sierra Leone.
No, Dennis, you don't have that.
You're talking like right now. You're going to Sierra Leone.
We have a minute to close.
We're not talking Sierra Leone politics here.
Another show for that. Then I'll do another show for that.
Yeah. We have a minute to close.
He's in the Hague, not because of Liberia, because of.
Well, it's not in the Hague. It's actually in the UK here with me, actually.
We have a minute to close. Let me bring out George and Dr. Malik. Sorry, we are closing this 1 minute, this radio. So we have just this time we need to close. George, can you and gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's bring our producer, George. We don't have any caller.
No calls yet. The guys are enjoying the conversation.
All right,
Joy, you got to love me for calls.
But thank you. Let me bring in Dr. Mali. Dr. Mali, I'll give you 30 seconds. So just say, I'm sorry you're late and we are closing this 1 more minute. So you have 30 seconds.
No, I think I should have notified you earlier. I was on the highway when the program was
go through your point because you have 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank the panelists who have been following the program. Mm-hmm. And I think they have been at their best, and it's just that the issue discussed now is not miracle. I think it's deeply rooted in the cradle of Liberia since 1847. You see, and things are just being manifested in a different way right now. You see, but anyway, government is continuity, so we expect the government in power to set a bold agenda to address some of the crises.
Thank you.
Now is have they identified the problem in Liberia? That's
maybe
the question.
not. Thank you. On that note, we want to thank you, gentlemen. We want to thank our listening audience in Liberia. Always focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We'll also be on Kear Radio on Saturday morning, 10 a.m. We'll discuss the same national issue, and we'll have Dr. George Gompu, who is running in the Niba by-election, will be our guest for half an hour. Until then, we close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good day. God bless you, and see you next time.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. They are we one. Liberia, oh. They are we one. Liberia, Liberia.